On April 28, 2024, the pastor of Solid Rock Church delivered his usual sermon. The atmosphere was lighthearted, with laughter filling the room as Pastor John Paul J.P. Miller spoke of himself as a charming, attractive, and humble man, a guide to finding God. His words resonated with the congregation, and the mood remained joyful. After concluding his sermon, John Paul made a series of unusual requests. First, he asked everyone to stand. Next, he insisted that no one ask any questions after he made an important announcement. Then he requested that everyone leave the church in complete silence without making any comments. Lastly, he urged the congregation to continue attending services regularly, mainly to keep up with their donations. A heavy silence fell over the church, and John Paul's words not only deeply affected those present, but would be remembered for years to come. He made a shocking announcement. His wife, Mica Miller, just 30 years old, had taken her own life the previous day. John Paul J.P. Miller married Allison Miller on February 26, 2000, and they had 5 children together. J.P. had a deep love for Jesus, which led him to start working as a pastor when he was around 20 years old. In 2006, he began holding church services in a library, attended only by his family and a few close friends. After some time, J.P. constructed his own church. When J.P. was 28, he met Mica, who was just 14 years old at the time. Mica and her family moved to Myrtle Beach in 2008, and that's where Mica and J.P. met at his church. Mica even worked as a babysitter for J.P. and Allison. J.P. and Allison's marriage started having serious problems when Allison accused him of having relationships with minors and being addicted to prostitution. The church urged J.P. to get therapy, but he refused. Despite these serious accusations, he kept preaching as if nothing was wrong. This caused some members of the congregation to leave because they couldn't reconcile his actions with their Christian beliefs. In 2015, J.P. and Mica began a secret relationship, although it wasn't really a secret because Allison eventually caught them in the act. J.P. and Allison's marriage ended in divorce in 2016. The following year, J.P. proposed to Mica, and they got married in his church, with J.P. officiating the ceremony himself. After they got married, things started to get worse. Mica revealed that J.P. began abusing her in every possible way, sexually, financially, and emotionally. Despite this, they stayed together and even went on mission trips to countries like Ethiopia and Mexico. Their religious beliefs didn't allow for divorce, and it seemed like Mica was determined to make the marriage work until she just couldn't anymore. By November 2022, things had become unbearable. Mica left to stay with her family because she couldn't take it anymore. J.P. sent her an email saying that when someone hurts him, he retaliates instead of forgiving. When Mica decided to move in with her sister, J.P. threatened both her and her sister. In February 2023, despite all their issues, J.P. and Mica signed a prenuptial agreement 6 years after getting married. At that time, they were living in the church, which was excluded as a marital asset if they got divorced. Basically, if they divorced, Mica would get nothing. The agreement also stated that neither of them would talk about the church's internal matters or publicly discuss their problems. On October 8th of the same year, Mica filed for divorce, but the case was dismissed because they said they wanted to give their marriage another try. However, just 10 days later, JP filed for divorce since they were no longer living together and wanted to end the relationship. This case was also eventually withdrawn. JP didn't stick to the terms of the prenuptial agreement. During his sermons, he often talked about the problems he was having with Mica, telling the congregation that she had mental health issues. Many church members, seeing how JP was talking about his wife, felt sorry for Mica and offered her their support. By this time, JP had already set his sights on another woman. He openly said that his plan was to pray, get rich, and find himself a hot woman. JP also claimed that his enemies had tried to harm him, referring to Mica during their heated arguments, but he said it didn't bother him at all. He claimed to pray for them, hoping they would find repentance, but insisted that their actions were not against him but against the kingdom of God. In February 2024, Mica was admitted to a mental institution. On the day she was set to be discharged, the doctors and nurses informed her that her husband had taken her wallet and car keys. When Mica was finally released, JP was nowhere to be found, and her car wasn't where it had been parked. She called the police to report that her husband had stolen her belongings and had been manipulating her since they met, making her appear insane. The police contacted the pastor to get his side of the story, but he simply told them that his wife was mentally unstable, that she had an episode like this every year lasting about a month, and that he wouldn't return the car until this phase passed because the vehicle was marital property, not solely hers. There wasn't much the police could do, as no crime had technically been committed and they weren't divorced. Throughout the story, it becomes clear that the relationship between the two was severely strained, with JP constantly slandering his wife and portraying her as mentally ill, something that must have been infuriating for her. If things were bad before, they were about to get much worse. Then another episode happened and Mica had to call the police again. Someone had slashed her tires. When she took the car to the shop, they discovered a system installed that slowly deflated the tires, something that could have caused a serious accident if she hadn't noticed it in time. But that wasn't all. A GPS tracker had also been installed, allowing someone to monitor her every move. She told the police who she suspected was responsible, but without evidence it was just an accusation. Later that day, while she was at a gas station, her husband showed up. She told him she didn't want to talk and asked him to leave her alone. He reacted violently, threatening to post a topless photo of her on Facebook, to which she replied that she would press charges if he did. Mica recorded the entire interaction. The pastor left, but he continued to follow her. Mica called the police again, and an officer met her at her location. While she was explaining everything that had been happening, she received a call from an anonymous number. The officer told him to leave her alone, to stop contacting her, and warned that if he didn't, a restraining order would be issued. Mica told the officer she feared for her life, explaining that since she was 14 years old when they first met, he had been trying to control everything she did, including whom she spoke with, to mold her into his way of thinking. Later that same day, Mica contacted the police again, this time requesting a restraining order. The officer met with her again and confirmed that a GPS tracker had indeed been installed to monitor her movements. And as they were talking, JP appeared. By this point, things were seriously deteriorating. Mica called the police multiple times, yet nothing was done, and JP continued to do as he pleased, stalking her, installing a GPS, deflating her tires, and behaving as though he had absolute control over her. Some days later, Mica posted a video on her Facebook account. In the video, she urges people in abusive situations to share it, hoping it might help someone. With a heavy heart, she says, "There are many women who have reached out to me because they are in abusive situations. I just want to say what so many people have been telling me lately. I knew it, but I had pushed it to the back of my mind because of my situation. You are the bride of Christ first before anyone else, regardless of your gender. Abuse is abuse, and you are Christ's bride. My Bible says that he himself endured all the suffering you can imagine for you, so you wouldn't have to live a life of slavery and pain. Abuse, whether it's sexual, physical, emotional, or mental, is never your fault. God hates divorce, but what he hates even more is abuse." Then, Mica filed for divorce, and 2 days later, she made her last post, which featured an image that read, "Success is not always what you see." On the 27th of April, Mica was captured on her home security camera leaving her house. Other cameras caught her buying a handgun and ammunition. She bought a sandwich and headed to a state park in Northern Carolina. Soon after, 911 received a call.
Robeson County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Hi, are you able to trace the location of my phone?
You don't know where you're at?
At National Park
Where's the park located at?
in Fair Bluff. I have my location on, I think, on my phone. Find My Phone is on. I just did my my location.
Are you at the Lumber River State Park?
Yeah, that's where I am. I'm about to kill myself, and I just want my family to know where to find me.
Okay, ma'am. Just listen to what I'm saying, okay? Let me make sure I got the exact location where you're at, okay? Just 1 minute.
Authorities were notified, and a drone was dispatched to survey the park to determine if this was a genuine emergency. The drone located her car, which was parked, and a fisherman later reported finding a wallet with the ID of Mica Miller after hearing a woman crying. He found it in the water, where they also discovered Mica's lifeless body. After confirming that just 2 days earlier, a divorce filing had been made and a restraining order was issued, the North Carolina police investigated John Paul's whereabouts at the time of the incident. Neither he nor his lover were in the city. There are camera recordings of his car driving on a state highway, but there's no way to confirm if he was actually driving. Only a blood alcohol test was performed on Mica's body, but no autopsy was conducted, which should have included a toxicology report and an examination of the trajectory and cause of the gunshot. This would have ensured that it was self-inflicted and not caused by someone else. It appears that the shot was to the head with no exit wound, and her death was ruled a suicide. John Paul was given control over Mica's body, and he decided to have her cremated. But before doing so, just 1 day after Mica's body was found, on the 28th, JP gave a sermon at his church.
We're not going to do an altar call today. Instead, I'm going to have you stand up, and I'm going to make an announcement. And after the announcement, I'm going to ask that you leave church quietly and don't talk about the announcement here in the building, please, if you can, so y'all can stand to your feet. Before I make the announcement, I also want to say that my request to you is that you will continue to come to church and serve and give for the next little bit, because I don't want to have. I'm taking a little bit of a break, and I don't want to have to worry about the church. My break may be a few days, a few weeks, I don't know. I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away. And yeah, it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina. And we're going to have a funeral for her next Sunday here at 3 p.m. And so it's all I can. Yeah, I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now. So y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. And she wasn't. Y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her.
3 days after her death, JP officiated a funeral for his wife, while her family held a separate one. Shortly after Mica's death, John Paul sent a message to a group chat with her family. This is what happens when you encourage someone to divorce the person they love and tell them they don't need medication and aren't sick when they really are. Great job! Mica's sister responded. It's easy to blame others when that's all you know how to do. No one told her to stop her medication. Get that into your head. You drove her insane, plain and simple, and the surgery you forced her to get pushed her over the edge. How dare you even contact us and speak like this? The surgery her sister referred to was a breast augmentation that the pastor had pressured his wife into getting. Mica's family started expressing numerous doubts about the circumstances of her death. To begin with, they noticed bruises on her back and scratches on her hand. The office that examined her body claimed that these might have been from when she was pulled out of the water. And since no autopsy was conducted and her body had been cremated, these doubts could not be investigated. Mica's father stated that a bullet was found lodged in a tree near where her body was discovered, one of the same bullets Mica had bought before heading to the park. It's strange that someone intending to take their own life would miss on the first attempt. He also mentioned that his daughter had never been to that location before and that the last time he spoke to her, she didn't seem like herself. She had told him she was buying a gun for protection because she feared for her life, and she knew how to use it since she had taken shooting classes. The police didn't check her car for a GPS device, despite Mica's earlier claims, nor did they confirm whether JP was actually driving the car caught on camera, supposedly with his lover. Incidentally, this is the same lover JP tried to cheat on with a waitress, to whom he left a $20 tip along with his phone number. Mica's family claims that the voice in the 911 call didn't sound like her. She spoke slowly in the recording, but normally she was much more lively, speaking quickly. Now, there's speculation that Mica wasn't alone that day and that someone forced her to make the call. If Mica was truly concerned about her family finding her body, wouldn't she have left a note or sent her location to a family member? Some people are even suggesting that her voice in the 911 call could have been generated by artificial intelligence. Where did the bruises and scratches come from? Was she alive when her body was placed in the water? Why was there dirt on her hands? And why did she buy food if she was planning to end her life? Why did she have a hair appointment that week and plans to go on a mission trip? Mica was, by all accounts, happier than she had been in a long time, finally thinking about living her life on her own, away from this man. So, why wasn't an autopsy performed? There are so many unanswered questions. This case has become a major topic in the U.S., prompting the FBI to launch its own investigation. JP's lover spoke out, referring to Mica as mentally ill and claiming she wasn't taking her medication. This woman didn't even know Mica, only what JP told her, and he was unfaithful to her, or at least tried to be. Second, the waitress JP was flirting with, to whom he sent bikini photo requests, has also come forward, sharing the messages he sent her. Just days after Mica's death, this man reached out to her again, asking how she was doing. She responded that she was fine and asked how he was, to which he replied, "Just dealing with a lot of stuff these days." The husband of JP's lover had a tragic accident that left him paralyzed. One night, while in his wheelchair near a pool, he fell in and drowned. John Paul officiated his funeral and then got involved with his widow. The Solid Rock Church website is currently offline. There were rumors that JP had been expelled from the church. There are times in life when many, if not all, of us go through low points, anxiety, and fear. Having someone beside you who is trying to make you feel like you're losing your mind only exacerbates these feelings, making you seem truly insane. And there are more people like that out there than we think. Mica knew JP was one of them, and she made sure to record many of their arguments. She even told her sister, "If I ever disappear, I didn't do it. It was John Paul." Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.